Hey guys, so I'm here with the second episode, well the first proper episode of my thoughts. Now I said I'd be coming to you every Saturday in the last video. Now we're going to be uploading it Sunday at 6 PM because it gives me Saturday to record this. However, the first week I'm not recording it on a Saturday. Anyway, let's get into the video. As you can see by the title, I'm going over something which is used in fitness terminology all the time. Macros. What are macros? When you first jump into the fitness industry and start doing your own homework and things and finding out what on earth they are, what on earth these things are, how to diet, how to do all these things, people throw around the term macros all the time, and then if you don't know what they are, you have to physically go and find out what on earth they are. And when people do tell you what they are very basic in what they let you know. So, macros, the basic knowledge that most people will tell you straight off the bat is that macros is a breakdown of the word macronutrients. And macronutrients is just a fancy term of saying fat, protein and carbs. That's it. Video over. No, I'm just kidding. So, right, why are they significant? Macronutrients or macros make up calories. So whenever you hear calorie counting, macro counting is essentially a fancy version, or I say fancy, but a more precise version of counting your calories. So if you count your macros instead of your calories, you're then going to be able to have more control over your calorie counting. This is because in a calorie controlled diet, if you're saying, okay, I'm going to eat 2,000 calories a day, that 2,000 calories could come from Snickers bars. And it's still in your calories, which, yeah, will work to a certain extent. You're still in a deficit. It's not going to do you many favours health-wise. You're going to be constantly hungry, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk, that's a whole nother video. But by counting your macros, you know your body's getting the nutrients it needs while staying in a deficit. And you know, okay, I've been a bit rubbish this day, so protein is under, fat is way over, etc, etc. So you can sort of have more of an in-depth look into why you might be failing. If you are failing, it gives you more of a detailed explanation as to why. It also shows you that for next year, this is what I need to do to succeed. That's the whole point in macros. Now, what are each individual ones, like the proteins, the carbs, and the fats? So I'm not going to go in depth into these today because I'm going to do another video on it where, first of all, I do my own research because it's been a long time since I looked into these, and there's probably some, first of all, new stuff on it. Second of all, I need a bit of a refresh before I start telling you guys. Basically, in the most basic form, they're all forms of energy. Now, most people will say protein isn't a form of energy. It's true to an extent. Protein is mainly for repair. So, if worst case scenario, you should never let your body get to the point where it needs to be using protein as an energy source, but it will do. It can do if necessary. Let's put it better that way. So, fats and carbohydrates are two sources of energy. So if you want to lose weight, probably just cut one of them out. There's a whole other video, as I say, I'll do another video on this. But now we can get into a little bit more detailed into what they do. So how do they make up? How do the macros make up the calories? Because you'll notice that, say if something's got 10 fat, 15 carb and 20 protein, you'll have a look at it and think, well, 10 fat, 15 plus 20, there's no way that's only 45 calories, which is not. And you're thinking, well, how does it break it down? Why this is so confusing? Well, very, very simple, and I only found this out quite recently. It's considered known knowledge, and that's why I think it's so important to do a video on this, because it's considered known, but if I'm honest, I didn't know this until when I was doing my shred this year. So, and that's almost about 2.5 years I was doing it and I didn't know this. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling. So, for every gram of fat, you have 9 calories. For every gram of carbs, you have 4 calories, and for every gram of protein, you have 4 calories as well. So this is how it makes up. So if you've got 1 gram of fat, that's equal to 4 calories. So if you had 1 gram of everything, each macro, you had 1 gram of each macro in a bar of some kind of amount. So you'd have 8 plus 9, 17 calories for 1 gram of each. If that makes sense to you. I'm hoping it does, because I think that's a very vital bit of knowledge that you can use, which explains why when you often see a diet, the carbohydrates, you'll be able to eat more carbohydrates than you will fat. You'll be able to eat more protein than you will fat, because they're a lot less calorie dense per gram. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Yeah, that's essentially what macronutrients are. Macronutrients, on the basic things, are a breakdown of calories, and I think they're far more efficient, a far more efficient way of dieting, using a macro counter rather than a calorie counter. Yes, okay, to an extent, use your calories, because you can go up and over on different macros and still fit in your calorie deficit. Calorie deficit is the most important thing in a diet, but at the same time, keeping an eye on where the calories are coming from is so important as well. So my advice would be, if you are dieting, and dieting, when I say dieting, that doesn't mean necessarily losing weight. Dieting could be putting on weight or maintaining weight. Anything you eat is your diet. So if you are controlling your diet, I think that's a better way to put it, I would definitely suggest using a macro counting method, because the precision you can get on it, and it doesn't take that much more effort. If anything, it gives you more of an idea of what you're doing is right, because sometimes counting calories, you think, well, I've just eaten a Mars bar, that's not dieting, but how does this work? Whereas having a macro counting method gives you, makes a lot more sense. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's my thoughts video. As I said, it's going to come out next week. If there's anything you particularly want me to touch on, please leave it down below. I will be doing tutorials on different movements and exercises that I know of, really. That I know that work for me, and obviously if they don't work for you, then that's fine. Everyone has different ways of doing things. But it's just my thought. This is why this is called My Thoughts. It's because my thoughts on what I think is right for now, and my mind always changes. Everyone. I think if you're staying still, your opinion isn't developing. You're not gaining much knowledge. If in your mind you're guaranteed that you're doing everything right, you're probably not. So maybe a few months, years down the line, I might come back and say, do you know what? This is this and this is that. But for now, this is what I know. This is what I think is correct, and this is what has worked for me so far. And I hope this has given you a brief explanation on macronutrients, and will enable you to understand when people are talking in depth about, okay, I'm eating this is this macros, and so on. Anyway, I'm going to end today's video off here. If you did like it, leave a like and subscribe as well, please. Because basically when I get up to 100 subscribers, I can change the channel URL, and it looks a bit rubbish at the moment, just having the little channel /YZ. So yeah, subscribers help me out. Anyway, I'll speak to you guys next week for another episode of My Thoughts.